Oh my goodness, here we are. Here we are. We are 1 day removed from the start of the WNBA season for Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. Other teams do play today. Will I be doing reaction? Unless something crazy happens, probably not. Probably not. I don't know if I want to subject myself to that, to be honest with you. I mean, I ought to get hazard pay like it is. We should all get hazard pay like it is.
Yerahi Apki intro KO Zayata viral, dramatic or retention-heavy style main rewritten version. YouTube WNBA commentary style main. Before the WNBA season has even officially tipped off, the chaos has already started. The Indiana Fever are suddenly dealing with injuries, frustrated fans, and a growing media narrative that honestly sounds insane. ESPN analysts are now suggesting the Fever offense could actually look better when Caitlin Clark isn't dominating the ball. Seriously? The player who completely transformed the league's ratings, ticket sales, and national attention is now somehow being treated like the problem before Game 1 even happens. So what's really going on here? Is there actual basketball logic hidden behind the criticism? Or is this another desperate attempt to downplay the biggest superstar the WNBA has seen in years?
I'm mostly going to talk about Fever Wings because that's the game I just finished watching, but we'll also touch on a couple things that I observed from the 2 Friday night games that took place on opening night. First thing I'll say is I'm so excited that the WNBA is back because many of you know I covered the Celtics. That ended about a week ago. Their season ended about a week ago, and I've been enjoying watching the NBA playoffs, but it's fun to have a bunch of new basketball to watch. And while there's no team in Boston, there's still a lot of connections to the region, and I'm really enjoying watching the first couple games here.
And before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe because this story is already turning into absolute madness. You'd think a team built around Caitlin Clark would spend the offseason celebrating packed arenas, insane hype, and championship expectations. Instead, Indiana Fever fans are waking up every week wondering which injury update is about to ruin the mood next. Somehow this franchise managed to turn basic medical reports into full-blown panic attacks. Every announcement now feels like a disaster movie trailer, with fans refreshing social media in silence while staring at their season tickets wondering if the basketball gods are trolling them again. And the craziest part? The regular season hasn't even properly started yet.
All right, you guys, that's it. Game 1 for the Indiana Fever. They lose to the Dallas Wings at home, 107-104. And before we even jump into the meat of the game, can we talk about that final play? So there was 1.5 seconds left on the clock. The Indiana Fever are down by 3 points. The play earlier, Caitlin Clark misses a logo 3, but it was a good shot at the basket. She pump faked. Paige Beckers went up to try to block it. She let her pass, and then she shot the ball. It was a clean look at the bucket. It was a good shot. I would take that shot 10 out of 10 times. She just didn't happen to make it.
Right now, nobody is even talking about basketball anymore. The entire conversation around the Fever has turned into non-stop injury monitoring, like fans are watching a stock market crash happen in real time. And honestly, hearing the phrase day-to-day doesn't even feel normal anymore. It sounds like a warning siren. Every update creates another wave of panic, another round of speculation, another moment where fans start imagining worst-case scenarios before a single meaningful game has even been played. That's how tense things have already become around this team.
Start of the season, we've already got injury news. Injury news is coming out. There's no way we're doing this again, right? We're doing this again, folks. We have not played one game. We've only had some preseason action, but we're knee-deep in injuries. Let's start here because, well, here I am right here.
And somehow, that's almost impressive in the worst way imaginable. The season hasn't even truly started yet. Preseason basketball just ended, and Indiana Fever fans are already hearing the exact same terrifying phrases that completely ruined the mood last year. The kind of updates that destroyed vacations, emptied wallets, and had the entire fanbase stress scrolling at 2 a.m. like they were preparing for a national emergency. 1 minute people are dreaming about sold-out arenas and deep playoff runs. The next minute they're bracing themselves for another season where every injury report feels more dramatic than the actual games.
Versus a team that had the damn #1 pick last year because they were so garbage. Like, bro, what is going on? First of all, Stephanie White, I'm going to address you. You came over here to the Indiana Fever. You done messed up the offense so much to the point where You forgot that you're supposed to be a damn defensive coach. This defense was absolutely trash. The defense was garbage.
1 minute fans are booking flights, reserving hotels, paying insane prices for lower bowl seats, and buying enough Fever merchandise to personally fund the Indiana economy for the next 6 months. And the next minute they're sitting on social media refreshing injury updates like nervous gamblers checking winning numbers. At this point, being a Fever fan barely feels like normal sports fandom anymore. It feels like a mix of basketball investigation, emotional survival training, and crisis management. And now the latest anxiety revolves around Monique Billings, with questions already building about her availability for opening night, while Lexi Hull is reportedly expected to play limited minutes. On paper, that probably sounds like standard early season roster management. But Fever fans stopped treating these situations like normal basketball news a long time ago. Last season completely changed the relationship between this franchise and its audience, because people remember exactly what happened. They remember the non-stop uncertainty surrounding Caitlin Clark. They remember vague injury updates turning into weekly suspense episodes. They remember spending thousands of dollars planning trips specifically to watch the biggest attraction women's basketball has seen in decades, only to end up staring at last-second reports that turn dream weekends into refund nightmares. And that's what makes this situation different from every normal WNBA injury conversation. Caitlin Clark didn't just become popular. She completely changed the economics and attention level of the league overnight. Entire arenas started selling out instantly. Secondary ticket prices went insane. Road games stopped feeling like regular basketball events and started looking like traveling concerts with a court in the middle. Cities that struggled to fill seats before suddenly had fans lining up hours before tip-off just to watch warm-ups.
Are we surprised at all with what we saw today? I'm not. There was no defense from this team in the preseason, and there was no defense from this team tonight. There is no defense against the Liberty, no defense against the Wings, no defense against the Nigerian national team. So why would I come to this game thinking that suddenly the defensive guru, Stephanie White, was going to have them playing defense? Why would I even expect that?
So when injury management starts feeling vague, inconsistent, or overly secretive, fans react way differently now because the financial investment tied to Caitlin Clark is on an entirely different level from anything the WNBA has ever seen before. People are not casually buying tickets anymore. They are planning full vacations around this team. And when uncertainty starts piling up, the reaction becomes absolute chaos almost instantly. But somehow, the media circus has become even crazier than the injuries themselves. Because right on schedule, with the new season approaching, ESPN debates are already firing up again, and once again Caitlin Clark somehow became the center of the hottest takes on the internet. This time, former coach and ESPN analyst Carolyn Peck shocked fans by suggesting the Indiana Fever could actually become more dangerous without Clark because she's too ball dominant. And the internet immediately exploded. Because let's be serious for a second. Every elite playmaker in basketball dominates possession. That is literally how superstar offenses work. The ball lives in the hands of players like LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic because entire systems are built around their decision-making. Nobody watches the Denver Nuggets and suddenly says, you know what? This team might secretly be scarier without Jokic touching the ball so much. That take would get laughed out of every sports bar in America before the appetizers even hit the table. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, somehow normal superstar logic suddenly gets rewritten. The same traits that make legends untouchable in other leagues suddenly become concerns when she does it. And that's exactly why this debate exploded so fast online.
White's back. There's a familiarity with the system, and Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull and Sophia Cunningham and a lot of those players, have had experiences together. The Dallas Wings, there's some continuity, right? Like players like Paige Beckers and Enrique Gombawale, Maddie Segrist, like they are all returners. But they draft AZ Fudd, the #1 overall pick. She's coming off the bench for now. They add Odyssey Sims, who ironically was a critical part of the Fever's playoff run last year. She was waived in the middle of the season. She's a veteran of this league. And ends up, because of all the injuries that the Fever dealt with last year, she ended up becoming an important part.
But with Caitlin Clark, the conversation always turns strangely dramatic, almost philosophical. Suddenly people are not even debating basketball anymore. They're debating what basketball is supposed to feel like. One side hears those ESPN comments and thinks it's just harmless strategy talk about ball movement and offensive balance. The other side hears it and immediately sees another attempt to downplay the one player who dragged the WNBA into mainstream sports culture almost overnight. And honestly, that reaction exists for a reason. Because Caitlin Clark's impact goes way beyond points and assists. She doesn't just change the scoreboard, she changes the entire emotional atmosphere of the sport. The second she steps on the floor, every possession feels dangerous. Like something completely insane might happen at any moment. A logo 3. A full-court laser pass that makes absolutely no sense. A transition pull-up so reckless it physically ages coaches on the sideline in real time. That's the real reason these debates explode online. Fans are not only defending a player, they're defending the excitement she brings to the sport itself. Now to be fair, there is a tiny piece of basketball logic buried inside the criticism. At times, the Fever offense did look more balanced when multiple players initiated actions instead of relying entirely on Clark to create everything. That happens sometimes. Basketball history is full of examples where teams temporarily discover different rhythms when a superstar misses games. Role players become more aggressive. Ball movement changes. Players stop hesitating because they know they have to attack. But there's a massive difference between saying a team found extra offensive versatility and saying they are actually better without their superstar. Those are two completely different conversations. And that's where this debate started sounding ridiculous to a lot of people.
Shit is so annoying, bro. It's so annoying watching this Stephanie White-led team, bro. It's just like you really came over here and messed all of this stuff up, man. The Indiana Fever lose the season opening game. The season opening game to the damn Dallas Wings, 107-104. Fever dropped their first game at home. How you get bumped your first game at home?
And the reason fans react so strongly is pretty simple at its core. The Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark are still not even close to the same cultural force, financial magnet, or competitive ceiling as they are with her. That isn't opinion anymore, it's observable reality. Television ratings prove it. Ticket demand proves it. Social media engagement proves it. Arena attendance proves it. Merchandise sales prove it. Even opposing franchises understand it, because suddenly every single road game becomes their biggest night of the season the moment Indiana shows up. The entire building changes. The energy changes. The stakes feel different. And the league knows it too, even when parts of the conversation feel reluctant to fully say it out loud. What makes it even more complicated is how divided the media narrative still is around her rise. Instead of fully leaning into the phenomenon, certain discussions sound almost conflicted, like there's hesitation in acknowledging just how much one player has shifted the attention economy of an entire sport. At times, the conversation about basketball spills into debates about marketing, visibility, league politics, and broader cultural dynamics. A simple pick-and-roll possession can somehow turn into something that sounds more like a panel discussion in a sociology lecture than a breakdown of basketball. Meanwhile, most fans aren't looking for that level of complexity. They just want to watch the game, enjoy the moments, and not feel like every possession needs a think piece attached to it. And yet the chaos keeps growing because the Clark effect amplifies everything around her. A great performance turns into national headlines. A rough night becomes a trending topic. A hard foul triggers instant outrage across social media within minutes. Every outcome feels bigger, louder, and more emotionally charged than it would be for almost anyone else in the league. That's what makes this one of the most unpredictable and intense storylines professional basketball has seen in years.
Offensive game plan. Can anybody tell me what the offensive game plan is for this team? Can anybody actually sit down and explain to me what the offensive identity of this team is, other than Stephanie White has no clue? Other than Kelsey Mitchell, iso ball, Caitlin Clark, we're not going to utilize you as a pick and roll, you're going to be a decoy. Sophie Cunningham, not really used either.
You can almost hear the exhaustion from longtime basketball voices who've covered the league for years. Many of them openly admit they've never seen anything quite like this, because the emotional intensity around Caitlin Clark doesn't behave like normal fandom anymore. It spills over everything. Every conversation becomes tribal within seconds. Every opinion gets sorted into extremes. Either you're celebrating her as the biggest thing to ever hit women's basketball, or you're immediately accused of disrespecting the sport itself. There's barely any neutral ground left in the discussion. And somewhere right in the middle of that noise sits the Indiana Fever. A franchise now stuck in the hardest position in modern sports, trying to build real basketball identity while also managing a global attention machine that formed around one player almost overnight. Because the pressure this season is no longer just about excitement. It's about expectations. Last year was about arrival, about hype, about curiosity. This year is different. Now people want wins. They want playoff relevance. They want consistency. They want chemistry to finally click. They want to see whether Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston can evolve into the kind of duo that actually reshapes the league's competitive hierarchy. And that's exactly why the early injury concerns already feel so heavy. Fans aren't just reacting to normal preseason uncertainty anymore. They're reacting to a season they desperately want to feel stable for once. One where the Fever aren't constantly surrounded by question marks before the ball is even tipped. Instead, the opener is approaching, and people are already locked into minute restrictions, ankle updates, and availability reports like it's a suspense series nobody agreed to renew. And the irony in all of it? Despite the drama, the criticism, the media debates, and the constant noise, Caitlin Clark is still the reason millions of people are watching at all.
No. One down. Where do I even begin to start with this game? Now, I don't want to upset Slurp FC too much. I don't want to upset Psycho FC too much, who are hardcore Indiana Fever, Stephanie White stands, cult members, whatever you want to call them. Absolutely love the Fever, love Stephanie White. Will have no conversations that include anything negative about Amber or Kelly or the wonderful Stephanie White.
Even the critics can't stop talking about her, and that's the most ironic part of all this. Analysts who argue Indiana should function better without her still dedicate entire segments to breaking down her influence. Social media users who complain about too much Caitlin Clark coverage somehow spend half their timeline debating her every move. Opposing fan bases insist she's overrated, while simultaneously circling Fever games months in advance like they're must-watch events. Everyone is part of it. Whether people love her, hate her, defend her, criticize her, or overanalyze every facial expression she makes during a timeout, Caitlin Clark has reached the point where she simply cannot be ignored anymore. And that's usually what happens when a player stops being just an athlete and becomes a full cultural phenomenon. The WNBA has been chasing mainstream relevance for years, and now, on certain nights, it almost feels like the basketball is only part of the story happening in front of them. But through all the noise, one thing stays consistently true. The Indiana Fever are simply more exciting when Caitlin Clark is on the floor. The pace changes. The crowd energy shifts. The defensive attention warps possessions before they even develop. Every shot feels louder, every run feels bigger, and every moment carries a level of anticipation that very few players in any sport can generate. And that, more than any debate, is why the conversation never really stops.